Welcome to Season 3 of You're Not Alone with Townsend. My name is Townsend, and if you've followed my journey, you know that I'm not only a musician, but I'm also a mental health advocate. I use my platform to help spread awareness, love, build community, and simply help people feel less alone in their struggles. In the last couple of years, I've had the chance to interview people from all over the world about a huge variety of mental health topics, and I cannot thank each of you enough for helping us continue to shine a light on the world. Every other week this season, we're bringing you the best interviews we've had. Make sure to like and follow this podcast if you're enjoying it. And if you want to keep up with everything we've got going, follow us on socials at Townsendtmusic. Hope you enjoy. What is up, guys? It is Townsend. Thanks for listening to You're Not Alone with Townsend. I'm really excited about this. I know I say that every episode, but this one's a little bit different. This is kind of a treat for you guys. So every episode, we typically talk about a diagnosis and how it affects that person, tips, tricks, all of those things. But I'm really stoked because one of my friends from back in college, we won't talk about how long ago that was, but Hunter Moore, I've kept up with him through, our aging process, I guess, as you would say. And it's really cool. He is one of the few people I've seen just go and do what he loves, which is film and production and like all these really cool things. So he works for, I don't know if you know the name, but Bear Grylls. If you don't know who that is, you might live under a rock, but the outdoor enthusiast and expert. And tell me if I'm wrong, but he used to serve, was he like in the British army of some sort?
Yeah, he was in
Okay, look at me.
Special Forces a little
Special
bit.
Forces. Yeah. There he was. So anyway, just a super cool guy, outdoorsy. He's got all these TV shows and productions about being outdoors and like just surviving. And so my friend Hunter here helps with all the videos on the other side of the camera. So Hunter, thanks for joining us. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, listen, your voice. I'm going to need you to run this podcast from now on. Let's just be for real. Yeah. I am Townsend.
Welcome to Townsend's podcast.
Yes.
You're not alone.
You're about to be the introduction. Don't play. If y'all hear that voice, you know it's Hunter that's introducing this podcast. That's awesome. You've done voiceover work, right?
Bits and pieces here and there. It's one of
Okay.
those things that, like, I'm on the backside of the camera, but it's like baby steps. I'm trying to get more and more like out there. And plus, like with the voice and everything, you can kind of like give your body a break because the one thing about camera operation, especially with adventure camera operation, is that it does take a toll on your body.
Oh, I
Yeah.
cannot imagine how much that gear weighs.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think I saw, did you do some kind of voice work on a Bear Grylls thing?
Yeah, so
Okay, I thought I saw that.
yeah. So Bear, he has a live show going on in the UK right now called Bear Grylls Live, and I did like a little bit of voiceover work. It was a good bit of fun. We just got in a booth and we just threw some lines down. It's like just me introducing him and what the show was all about and everything. And those little like little in betweens of like oh, here's the intermission. It's like, well, he's coming right back, so get in your seats and everything. But
That is
no, like
awesome.
those bits and pieces I can do for friends has always been a good bit of fun for me.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You should do it. I think you should quit and do radio. I mean, you've got the voice for it.
Hey, like I said, baby steps.
I love it. Okay, so I probably did a pretty poor introduction, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Who is Hunter Moore? Like, what's your age? What is your actual title? Where are you located? Whatever you want to share this conversation. This project is funded by patrons and sponsors, so if you like what you hear and you'd like to help us continue changing lives in 2024, we would love to have you join the family. Reach out to us at townsendtmusic@hotmail.com if you'd like to be a sponsor, or hop on patreon.com/townsendtmusic to join the patron family. As a thank you, you're going to receive extra podcast questions and content every episode, discounts, exclusive content, and so much more. So join the family and let's continue changing lives.
Right on. Well, hello. My name is Hunter Moore. I'm an adventure camera operator. I live in Stone Mountain, Georgia, with my wife, Cody, my dog, Rigby, and my two cats, Tiny Dancer and Pickles. And I travel a lot for work. We've been out here. Like Stone Mountain is kind of a part of the greater Atlanta, and we're about 10 minutes from Stone Mountain Park. So it's like it's a fantastic place to be. Like we're surrounded by nature on a daily basis. We're just right where we want to be.
I love
But
that so much. So adventure cameraman, is that what you said?
That's right.
That is so cool. I bet
Yeah.
nobody's heard that. So I want to chat more about your job and what it entails. So
Mhm.
I think being in music, I've gotten a little bit more of a view than most people have. Like a lot of my friends that do music videos, they have all this gear, and I've
Yeah.
held it for like 5 seconds and thought I
Mhm.
need to go to a chiropractor because it's like 100 pounds and you've got
Yeah.
to have it at the perfect angle. So, what does being uh, the, I mean, just your job, like, what does being this adventure cameraman, what does that even mean?
Well, it's very multifaceted for one because there's so much that goes into the logistics and the backside of all this before we actually have boots in the ground. And once we have boots in the ground, we're very mission oriented. You know, you always have these beats that you have to hit. But for weeks, if not months at a time beforehand, we're, in meetings and like we have an amazing production team that, make sure that all like the travel is booked out and everything, where we're going is booked out, all the permits, all the papers are pulled and everything, which is just all the minutia that has to happen. There's a huge awesome team that goes into that. And then once we get called and everything, which is usually a fairly small niche team that is accustomed to doing a lot of these strenuous and outdoor shows, we'll get called, get our travel info, get where we're going, get to where we're going, try to scout out the area as best as we possibly can. So if we're out there and we have to pivot, we have a plan A, B, and C, and to where we're prepared. So when our people that we bring in to give them this adventure are, experiencing it in the best way they possibly can without, a heavy sense of like, full danger. We want to make sure they're safe and having fun, but also having a great experience.
I
Yeah.
never thought about gathering all of y'all to get you, like, into a different country and, like, all the paperwork and planning
Yeah.
that didn't
Yeah.
even cross my mind.
Permits, permits,
Yeah.
permits.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
imagine, especially on I'm sure he's on, like, private lands and reservations
Mhm.
and things like that at times, so you've gotta have
Yeah.
all the special stuff, yeah?
And that's you really like I said, it's a lot of paperwork and everything, and like I said, we have a really awesome, talented team that deals, with that side of things, and we also have, like it's what you were talking about private land and everything. We do work in a lot of, like, national parks in other countries as well, and our main mode of transportation is helicopter when we get out there, and a lot of times with, this mode of transportation, you sometimes have to land to, unload all your gear and everything. However, in a lot of these national parks, we can't land. So
Just jump.
we have to hover.
Oh, no
And so
kidding.
we'll come in and we have, like I said, a lot of very a very talented helicopter pilot, Ben Scorstead, and like he will literally hover a foot off the ground. So we're not breaking any laws, and then we bail out and everything, and like you can just the amount of concentration it takes to like pilot a helicopter is insane.
Yes.
And just to see someone sitting there and like looking at the gauges and like doing these little minute adjustments and everything, and then we bail out and everything. And then once we see him go off, that's when our mission begins. And
Wow.
yeah, so after that, it's just like a lot of leapfrogging and everything and making sure we have all our beats. Yeah.
Holy moly, that's bizarre.
Hmm.
That's crazy, yeah. So I don't think people so if you've ever seen a Bear Grylls show, I love those shows. I love their survival shows and just seeing a part of the world that we don't ever we're so spoiled, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I like to
Yeah.
humble myself a little bit and realize, like, we really do have it made. And so something cool with Bear Grylls that I have seen, he has shown kind of behind the scenes a little bit, and I don't think people understand. I'd love for you to kinda explain this. It's not just you follow him with a camera. Like,
Hmm.
you've got like you said, you've got plan A, B, C, you've gotta make sure, the terrain is right,
Yeah.
the weather is right. Sometimes you've gotta set up all your gear, take it down, set it up again,
Yeah.
take it down,
Yeah.
set it up again. You gotta film in coming and going. I mean, is that
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also it's just like I said, you definitely have to be prepared for everything. And a lot of us are very we're trained in a lot of rope work. And so if we actually come up to a situation, it's like, oh, well, we can't scale this mountain, but we're all like, oh, we know our knots and everything. We're all harnessed up and all our gags, so we can get from A to B quickly if we need to.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you kinda gotta be a risk taker.
You do, and, like, it also like, the training, definitely, you have to train for these types of shows physically, because, if you come out there and you haven't worked on, like, your body or, like, in the environment you're in, then you may have a hard time. You may not be able to keep up. And that's the great thing about like, going to these places. We usually will know where we're going beforehand, whether it be, the jungle, the desert, the Arctic and everything. And usually a few weeks out is when I start my training process to get my body in shape for these environments because they can be fairly extreme.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
It's almost like a caddy for golf. Like everybody pays attention to the golfer, but
Yeah.
really, if you do your research, the caddy's just as good, if not better than the golfer. So
Yeah.
it's cool to think about these cameramen are just as in shape and really just as knowledgeable. Just Bear Grylls kind of gets to be on the other side of the
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah,
Now,
that's the
when
thing. We're all friends out there. So that
so
because like
cool.
we've all kind of been a film family for like the last 7 years or so, and we've all worked our way up through the ranks, and
Yeah.
we are very comfortable with one another out there. We've worked with each other enough to kind of like base our movements off each other, and we call it's basically a dance. So you're
Yeah.
basically it's
Oh
like a
yeah.
full dance all the way to the end there. And like I said, sometimes it goes like really well, and sometimes you do have those hiccups and everything. But that's where you have to. Preparation is key. It's always going to be key
Yeah.
out there. Yeah, and
Man.
it's all about. And you were saying about weather earlier. Is like sometimes the weather is not going to go according to, and it's going to be terrible. But it's like our job is basically being being comfortable in uncomfortable environments. And
Yeah.
as long as you can kind of like navigate that, and you could be spitting snow or spitting rain in the like you'd be in the jungle and being eat up by bugs and everything, and it's raining on you and you're trying to keep your gear just working, and you're like, this isn't that bad. I
Like, what
think I'm
am
gonna
I
be
doing with
okay.
my life?
Yeah, yeah,
No.
and it's funny because like there's like two sides of the coin on you're like, man, I am getting wrecked right now. But like, look at this, look at where we are right now. This is
Right.
stellar. Like we're in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah.
We're getting to be in places that we like not a lot of people normally get to go. We get to meet people not a lot of people get to meet and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can't imagine being in the jungle. I'm not gonna lie. I would have to work on my optimism a little bit. Be like, they're
Yeah.
freaking bugs. What matter?
Ooh.
Is there ever a moment where you're like, okay, so I've seen Bear Grylls and he's like out in the wild and he's
Mhm.
talking about what you would eat if there was nothing available and he reach into bird's nest and he takes a raw egg and he just eats it.
Yeah.
Are y'all ever like, dude, what are you doing? That was not in the script.
Yeah, it's like, well, he found it, he's
Yeah.
comfortable with it. If he's gonna eat it, he's gonna
Okay,
eat it. It's
we
like,
and your
yeah,
camera's like, "Okay,
yeah.
then."
And it's like, all right, we're rolling. We're
We
good.
that happened.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Man,
yeah,
there were
it's
so
like,
many moments I thought, "I think I'd die." I
yeah.
think if that were me, I would not do that.
Especially those big grubs,
Oh
you once
my
you bust into one of those
gosh.
things and like
Ugh.
it's just like you hear it because we're
Yes.
we're also like we're monitoring audio and everything. We have amazing audio peeps out there and audio
Yeah.
mixers, but like we also for as cameramen we have the audio in our ear and you hear that
It's just
crunch.
yeah, it's just like,
Yeah, and it's just like
ah,
and it just spills like oh yeah, it's gonna
splashes
be
on the
good.
camera and you're like, "Good, there went
That's
my
why we have
granola bar."
filtration.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
Uh,
speaking of that, what's one of the coolest things or memories that you've had being an adventure camera operator? I imagine you've seen some cool stuff.
There's
What's something
quite
that
a
pops
few.
up?
Yeah, so, I used to do a show called Naked and Afraid a while
No
back too.
kidding. I remember
Yeah, yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's like
Bless you.
yeah, it's an interesting one, like, but I traveled all over the world for that one as well, and like, one of the more rewarding trips that I had, I was down in South Africa for in the bush around Mapangubwe for about, 2 months straight, and, basically, it's just like, living in the bush for that long and like, at any time I had down, anytime I had off, I was usually, trying to camp and, camping on the Limpopo River just right across the, way from Botswana and Zimbabwe, and just, like, taking in the wildlife as much as I possibly could, and it's just such an utterly wild place that the animals down there like, you're not at the top of the food chain, which is very humbling.
Yeah.
And so you like, there's no like, I really enjoy cardio. I really enjoy running. There's no running out there. Like,
Yeah.
if you run, you are prey.
You're done.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but yeah, being out there for about a little over 2 months, and like I said, kind of being away from civilization, the animals aren't afraid of you at all. They're not afraid of the car you're in. They just kind of like are very interested in you. And but yeah, I was there, like I said, for that amount of time, which is it was just such a rewarding experience to be able to, see wildlife that close. And like the sunsets and sunrises there were
Oh,
just otherworldly. It's like
yeah.
when we were kids and like watching the original Lion King, and you're like, oh my God, there's
Yes.
no way that that actually is going to be real until you're like over there and you see it. You're like, oh my goodness,
I've seen
it's
this in a
absolutely
cartoon one
how it
time.
is. Yeah. I'm seeing this
Yeah.
now. I see it
I've
for real.
seen this in a
Yeah.
cartoon. Oh man, I can only imagine how
Yeah.
cool is that? Well,
It was
you talked about you're going from the jungle to Africa for
mhm,
2 months and 3 months and half a year. And
yeah.
I mean, out in the Arctic and climbing mountains. I imagine it's just nonstop,
Yeah,
right?
it can be.
God,
Yeah.
how often do you travel for the job? Or how long are you gone during periods of time? Because I mean, like you said, you're married, you have a house.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world?
Yeah. Like so rarely do Cody and I get to like actually travel together. We did a couple of shows together. The one of the last ones we did was a show called Live Rescue. And so we were embedded for an entire year on the road.
Oh,
We were embedded with the first responders all over the nation. So we were up in Minneapolis for a little bit. We were actually down in Fort Smith, Arkansas for
oh,
about
okay.
a few months. And then we hopped over to Tulsa, Oklahoma, went down to Tallahassee, Florida, went up to St. Louis, Missouri, and then went another stint back in Tulsa before the shutdown for COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, we try to cap it off when it's just one of us. We try to cap it off at around 3 months
Yeah.
because 3 months can be on the road. It can take a toll on not only your body but your mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, as you know, it's like with the same thing in the music industry when you're touring and everything, and like you start to kind of lose yourself out on the road a
Yeah.
bit. And we lovingly developed a term called road rot.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you're on the road and then you start to, become a part of the road. And then once you start to like kind of try to come back home, you realize like the habits you've developed on the road. And so,
Yes.
especially when you're alone, like you'll develop those like single people habits, like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Your
I'm
wife's
just gonna
like, you're
leave.
such a bachelor.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, I'm just gonna leave the clothes on the floor for like what's a week, it's not bad. And it's like, oh, I can wear these pants 5 times in a week. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you start to develop this road rot and everything. And once you come back home, there's a weird reintegration period. And you also start to realize like the stuff that you are surrounding yourself with, you collected for so long in your home that you could live just fine without it.
Oh,
And like, living out of a suitcase, you really understand what little you can actually have to get by
yeah.
for like that extended period of time. But yeah, we've definitely gotten down our packing measures of just like living out of a suitcase and like a smaller item just to like, get by. It's like, oh, I just need like, 3 changes of clothes, two
Yeah.
pairs of civilian clothes, and then it's like I got my boots and everything else right here, and I'm pretty set.
Praise
But
God.
yeah, there's a strange reintegration period once you're back, and sometimes depending on if it's here in this hemisphere, it could take a weekend up to a week. If it's across the world where you're really having to deal with a lot of hardcore jet lag, it could take a couple of weeks. Like
Yeah.
especially if you're on the other side of the world for months at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were to go, let's say you've got a 3-month trip,
Mhm.
you and your wife, are y'all like, okay, you can take several of those trips, or have y'all limited that to like, okay, let's do like 1 or 2 3-month trips each?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like we that's the one thing we have is like we never try to say is like, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do
Well,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. We because we both have such a wanderlust about us,
yeah,
and we both are so stoked when one of us gets to go somewhere
yeah.
cool. Like, of course there's gonna be that tinge of like, oh, I wish I could do
I
it
want to
too.
go
And like, oh,
there.
I just want to go there and everything. But like but no, we a lot of times we use these adventures and these expeditions we go on to like, scout out the area or scout out the country
Yeah,
and be like, you know what? I think I could come back here for a vacation.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's come
Yeah.
back to the
Yeah,
Arctic.
well, it's nice and cool up here. You can
Yeah.
just feel. I'm a layers kind of guy, so it's like I love cold weather. When that's also the great thing about traveling for work. You're also traveling on somebody else's dime, so
Yeah, I was about to say
yeah,
it's
you get to
free
scout.
99 and you're getting to see the world.
Yeah, yeah,
That is awesome. That's so cool. It is kind of a bummer you don't get to take your spouse with you
yeah.
for the most part. Earlier, you had mentioned COVID, and
Mhm.
a lot of people listening, I don't know if they know, but there was a huge strike that was
Yeah.
talking about actresses and actors and
Mhm.
photographers and really just the creative, just creators,
Yeah.
period. Did that affect you in your job?
Yeah, so, as we know from a lot of the news last year, like the writers and SAG, did have it was a double strike, and, it was tough. It was tough on a lot of people because like, it was, especially for our sector, like, which I'm a part of IATSE, which I'm part of the local 600, the International Cinematographers Guild.
Very nice.
And, yeah, it's like so being, on that end and everything, watching the because we were stoked for like, we wanted the writers and the actors to get, everything they were requesting and everything because it's
Right.
such a really, really tough industry. And usually there's kind of a separation between narrative and reality, TV
Mhm.
and like movies and such. However, the strikes really it really took a toll on like the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So, we had so many people like right after, quarantine was lifted and everything, the industry was trying to pick back up as much as possible and go full steam ahead because a lot of the entertainment that was shot before COVID was already being shown on TV. So, like, you might have noticed there was a lot of reruns or like,
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, this seems like it was probably shot a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But, like, so yeah, a lot of people were just getting off of their back foot from COVID. And then once the strikes happened, like that's the work just like really just dried up. And like I said, it hit the unscripted sector more than it usually did. And yeah, because it was really tough. It was like I said, there was everyone was trying just to try to find that path forward. And like
Yeah.
when there's no work out there and you're just kind of sitting around, you're like, man, what's next? Like
Yeah.
something's got to break at some point. So I felt like we were kind of seeing like a huge brain drain on our industry of just like a real lot of really talented individuals who have been in the game for years, if not decades. They were like, well, I can't really rely on this industry anymore to really, help me and help like make sure that I can live well and my family can live well.
Right.
So you started seeing a lot of really talented, awesome individuals go to other sectors,
Wow.
and thankfully some of them work panned out. But it's still difficult for a lot of people, even though
Yeah.
we're on the other end of those strikes. We've also this year we are in negotiations. IATSE is in negotiations, so these negotiations come up every 3 years.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, hopefully you got what you got
Yeah.
this year because in 3 years it may not pan out the same way.
That's right.
Yeah, because
I
like
think
I ought, yeah,
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, but like I ought to say, we were going to strike about 3 years ago, and like they got the strike authorization and everything, and it seemed like it was going full steam ahead. But then they came to an agreement in the 11th hour, and so avoided a strike. But it was like everyone was
Yeah.
kind of on edge and everything. And
Yeah.
then this last year, when it finally happened with the writers and SAG, we were just like, man, this is heavy.
Right. I
Yeah.
think people, like blue collar or people that work in the office, the
Hmm.
typical 8 to 5, they have no idea what that even means. They're like, oh, that's silly. I don't think they realize
Yeah.
the weight that hold. I mean, that is your career. That's
Yeah.
your well-being, your family, and it's just waiting. It's just waiting on someone to
Yeah.
make a decision. And that's a crazy feeling. And I know as a musician, we feel the same thing. There's always like a loop you got to get through, so I was just curious if that affected you on the camera side. So very interesting. I can't imagine all the stress, all of these things put together between getting the perfect shot and the angle and the lighting and the narrative and the strikes going on, the traveling.
Yeah.
What are some things outsiders may not even know your job includes? I know we named a ton of them, but what are some
Yeah.
things that people be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like scaling
So
a mountain might be
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's a lot of like ebb and flow, but like a lot of stuff that like we were talking about earlier. It's like the logistics and everything, and our
Yeah.
post our production team and all that gag. So what we do out there is such a small sliver of what entails the whole entire show. There's a lot on the front end when it comes to production, really getting the logistics down. Then there's the actual producing part where we're out there filming everything. Then there's post production, to where it's like you have editors and you have your producers and post producers sitting down in the bay and like stitching everything together to give the product that you guys eventually see. But yeah, it's a lot. And like I said, it's as far as what a lot of people don't know, it's just like it takes, yeah, a lot of training.
Yeah,
And like I said, you want to definitely be prepared for when you're out there. You want your body, you want to make sure that your body is like your most important tool out there.
yeah,
And you want to make sure that, you're as healthy as can be. You're eating, you're putting in the proper fuel and everything. You're properly hydrated, and that you can keep up, and not only keep up, but be able to pay the way forward
that's right.
very quickly.
It would be embarrassing to be the guy in the back, like dry heaving. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I did not prepare for this environment, this
Mhm.
humidity level.
Yeah, and certain things you can't prepare for. You're
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
especially with like extreme cold. We were in Banff, Canada during the winter time. I think back in winter 2021.
oh my goodness.
And I remember like because we, like I said, we are always in our helicopters and everything, and we normally have the doors off. And I remember just at one point we were just getting what we call B-roll, which is like
Yeah.
all the like in between pieces that you see like between the scenes and everything of just your environment, where you are, your surroundings and everything. And I was doing some exteriors out of our helicopter, and we were up and about over the Banff Mountains, and there was a sunset going down, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. And as we were coming up, a big gust of wind kind of blew us off the side, and we were like, it got stable and everything. But my hand, I was wearing gloves and everything, but it was probably about -45 at the
Oh my
time, and
gosh.
in the heli, and my hand just all of a sudden starts to do this by
Oh
itself.
no.
And I was just like, "Huh, that's not
Oh,
normal."
this
And,
is frostbite.
yeah, I was looking through my viewfinder and, like, trying to, like, rack focus and everything. I was doing just fine, but it was the first time I'd ever felt my finger and felt my flesh start to completely freeze.
Oh my
And it was, like, completely there
gosh.
was no give and everything, and I looked over at my Scotty Hadfield, who was like our safety
Yeah.
extraordinaire, and showed my hand and did this as a pointing down, and he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And we, being up there for the amount of time that we were, probably like a little over 15 minutes, but that's all it really takes to,
Yeah.
for any sort of like frostbite to set in. We landed on this little bald knob out of the middle of the mountains, and me and another one of my safety peeps and friends, Amy, we got down, we waited for the heli to go away, and we were sitting there. And I remember like the best thing you can do if your hands are cold and you're in a really cold environment, you need to get them warm, get the blood going back again, is put them in your armpits
Yeah.
as quickly as possible.
Of course.
I was just sitting there and I was trying to grip my zipper, and my hand just
No
wouldn't.
fingers
Yeah,
worked.
like I was like, huh, my hands aren't really working right now.
Oh God.
And so I saw her over there literally doing the same thing. And so we just kind of looked at each other. I tore my glove off. My hands were stark white and
Oh
starting to
my
turn. And so we
gosh.
literally had to get our zippers in each other's mouths, pull it down, put our hands in each other's armpits, and dance
That's
around to
that's funny.
get the blood rushing back again. And then we had about a half a mile hike through waist deep snow to some snowmobiles that were waiting for us. They couldn't really be parked up there because of the snow. And once we got on the snowmobiles, we jetted off. I was literally trying to keep my hands in my armpits, but at a certain, certain temperature, your eyes just start to water and you
Yeah,
can't
that's
really
right.
help it.
Mhm.
And as my eyes were watering, I was blinking and then my eyelids froze shut. So I was on the snowmobile going towards this, like trying to go towards a
Yeah.
warming cap, which is like an
Yeah.
over snow vehicle. And I was just like,
God, this
okay.
is an unfortunate event.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
Eyes were frozen shut. My hands were folded over. And then
Golly.
finally, like we got into the cat, and we were like, trying to warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just remember like as my blood was starting to rush back into my hands and like hitting those frozen capillaries,
Yeah.
it was just like holding on to a fire poker. It was some of the most
Mm.
intense heat I'd ever felt in my hands,
Wow.
and it felt like white noise in my hands for about the
Yeah.
next 3 days.
Whoa,
Yeah, so it took about
crazy.
3 days or so for the full feeling to come back,
Oh my
which,
god.
thankfully, I just got nipped and not actually bit
No
because, you definitely need the
kidding.
hands for
Yeah,
what I
well,
do.
frost nip over frost bit, I'd take it
Yeah,
any day. Could you
any
imagine
day.
being a cameraman and you're like, "I'm here for the job."
Yeah,
Like, your
I'm
fingers don't
here.
work. "I'm here." Funny story, or your eyes are, like, frozen over and your hands
Yeah.
are That'd be unfortunate. I feel like you
Yeah.
may not get a few jobs.
Yeah, it's kinda
That'd
like
be
being a
rough.
one-eyed cameraman, you know?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah,
I feel
his
like
depth perception may be off.
oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like okay, I feel like the job is awesome. That story a little less awesome. That I mean, I wouldn't want to join that trip, but I
It's
imagine
memorable.
that yeah,
Yeah.
memorable, memorable. I imagine the stress and the long periods of being gone. It wears on your mental health. Yeah,
Mhm. It does.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
As I
feel
was saying
like
yeah.
what do you feel like helps you through those tough times?
Really, it's, trying to you gotta try to stay as positive as you possibly can and everything, and you really have to understand that your timelines. So it's kinda like, taking each day as it comes. For me personally, I try to get outside as much as possible, being I grew up in the woods. I grew up in Northeast Arkansas, where there was a bunch of like fields and woods and everything. And it's like it's funny because as time goes on, I remember in my adolescence, my young adulthood, you try to rebel from where you're from,
Yeah,
and you, as you get deeper into like your 20s and 30s and such, you start to realize that where you came up, you're like, oh man, I'm starting to get back here. I'm
that's
starting to
right.
go. Yeah, I'm starting to getting into the woods and getting into the mountains. That's where like I feel the most myself, and that's where I feel the most peaceful and everything. Also, when I'm, I play disc golf as well. So,
Okay, I could see
like,
that. I
and
could see that.
yeah, yeah, it's one another one of those things that like and it keeps you outside and thankfully, I have Cody who she and I have been together for over 12 years now. And it's just having your best friend and your partner that you can talk to who also understands where you're coming from, the trials and tribulations and the woes of traveling sometimes. Because like not only you getting to go to these awesome places and everything, but there is a downfall and everything. So it's like you maybe, being out there, you may be getting to play with your friends and you may be getting paid for it, but it does cost,
Yeah,
and like, yeah, so it's like it costs you time
yeah,
and it costs you time with your friends, your family, your loved ones. And because, like, a lot of times when you're out and about, like, you can't expect your friends and your family's lives to just stop. They're going to keep
yeah,
going too.
yeah,
And that's part of that reintegration period when you get back. And so when you come back and everything, it's like, it's tough because you'll get a hold of your friends and you're like, hey, I'm back and everything. You're like, oh, that's awesome, man. We should go off and do this. And then you get
yeah.
marching orders again and you'll be gone in like, the next two
Oh
weeks.
man.
And but it's kind of the out of sight, out of mind thing.
Yeah,
So as you're the more you're on the road, the easier it is to stay on the road.
yeah, that's
Because
right.
when you come back, those everyone that you kind of surrounded yourself with to be like your friends and family kind of moved on or kind of forgot
Yep,
a little bit.
yep,
And but that's also a part of you having trying to reach out. And also like for me, like especially with friendships in adulthood, it was so easy for us to make friends as kids and
yeah,
like in our adolescence and everything because we're just out there and vibrant. And but as an adult now, it's just like it's harder and harder to like establish relationships and really build on those relationships when you don't
yeah.
have the time.
That's right.
But yeah, like, but for me, like, and for Cody and myself, we love camping, we love
Yeah,
hiking, and we love just being out in the woods, and it's just like that's where I find myself the most and
oh,
everything,
absolutely.
especially when anxiety, like with the job and everything, some anxiety comes with it and everything, and sometimes when you get off of a job, a lot of it can be so fast paced. You're like, oh man, did I do this right? Did I do that right?
Yeah,
And like you could be filled with like a bit of regret sometimes, so it's like living the past and everything it makes you feel like that little bit of regret. Living too
mhm,
far in the future makes you feel a little bit of anxiousness and everything,
mhm.
where I tried my best to try to live in the present as much as I possibly can and just kind of be one with my surroundings. And it's easier said than done.
Yeah, no,
It's
right.
yeah, it's kind of like when you're saying like oh well, if you're meditating, just clear your mind. When it's
Yeah.
just like no, you can't.
It's impossible.
It's
Can't
impossible. It's
do
like
it.
damming a
Dang.
river,
Come on, come on, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would have to agree with that for sure. I think nature is something that for sure helps me kind of re-energize, almost like
Mm.
recenter myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, what is and I know it might be being out in nature, but is that what self-care looks like for you? Like going camping and going hiking
Yeah.
and
So, like, for me, it's just like, yeah, going camping, going hiking, getting a good sweat,
Yeah. It
and
sounds like you do that
being
every day
you
with
get
your
to,
job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Plus, I actually invested in like a sauna here too. So,
Oh, well, there you go. There's an easy
yeah, yeah.
answer.
We have a sauna. We also have a cold plunge, just to like,
Oh
that's
gosh.
how. Yeah, cold plunges. They're. I'm sure they help and everything,
Yeah.
but they hurt.
They hurt. Yeah,
They
yeah.
hurt.
I hurt watching
Yeah.
people do it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, and like, but also like, also stretching, keeping your
yeah.
body in motion and everything,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people that are my age, I mean, I'm only 34, and
Mm,
like I know people my age who are just like unhappy with themselves, unhappy with the way their bodies perform and everything, and it's like, but they, live sedentary lifestyles, and the most difficult part is the beginning.
yep.
And
Yep.
because especially if what you're looking for are just results, because
Yeah.
results are so slow when it comes to being fit or feeling fit or anything. And like also when you're on the road, like it can be extremely difficult because,
Mhm.
it's finding the time.
Yeah.
Because, for us, especially like sometimes you don't have great turnarounds.
Yeah.
And because our normal days are anywhere from 12 to 14-hour days. And so when you're coming home and everything, and you're trying or you're going back to your hotel room, you have the winding down period. And so like you're winding down, which maybe take an hour or 2 hours and everything. And you're eating something which may not be the best of whatever's around
McDonald's.
you, and
Yeah.
right. And but yeah, and then you start to get like bogged down in this quagmire, and like a lot of when you're out on the road and everything, there's a huge, people drink for social interactions and everything,
Right.
kind of loosen up. And so you'll find a lot of places like, or a lot of people just like, oh well, to wind down I have to have this beverage, oh well, to wake up I have to have this. And
Yeah.
it's like burning the candle at both ends.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, it can be really tough. But like for me personally, it's for like my winding down period is a lot of like, stretching and such, and like quiet time, and also music. Music plays a
Yeah.
huge role, as you can see.
Yeah. I love
And
your
like,
background. I
thank
don't
you.
see a Townsend one on there, but that's okay. I
Hey,
will look
hey,
over it. That's
hey,
fine. That's
I'll
fine.
throw you up there. But yeah, like music plays a huge role for me, and like because it can put you in any mood that you want to. It can
Mhm.
like I want to feel this way. I'm going to put this on. Oh, I want to feel a little more upbeat. I'm going to put this on. Oh, I want a hardcore workout. Let's put this on. And it can really deepen the emotion you're feeling, or let it all flow away.
Yeah,
Man. Yeah.
absolutely. I think you make a great point that people
Mm,
don't really understand, especially doing the podcast and
mm,
music and stuff like that. A lot of my days, one, I work 7 days a week, which I know you can relate with.
man.
And a lot of my days are 15, 16, 17 plus hours.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're constantly going, you eat whatever's open at that
Yeah.
time. You're on a weird like schedule. Your body's all jacked up. So it's hard to stay healthy for
It
sure.
is. Yeah.
So I can relate absolutely. Where can people find some of your work, Hunter?
Well, so if you look on Disney Plus, Disney owns basically everything now.
Okay, they
so,
sure do.
yeah, yeah. So National Geographic on there, so you can watch every episode of Running Wild. We also, if you have like BBC or anything like that, UK TV, we did a documentary where we went to Ukraine in December of 2022, where we met with Zelensky, and like talked about the counteroffensive that was going on over there at the time. So and I think you can also get that on Prime.
Okay.
You can get on the Discovery app, and you can find Naked and Afraid on there.
Yeah.
You can also, I do, when I'm back here in Atlanta, I do a lot of EPK, or electronic
Mhm,
press kit, which is
mhm.
like behind the scenes and everything. So I work with a great group of my friends here, and we do a lot of the BTS for Marvel and such, and a lot
Oh,
of the movies that
cool.
are around here. So like the making of Marvel and everything, you can see some of my work, and the amazing work of a lot of my friends on there as well.
That is so cool. I
Yeah,
had no idea. Well, you're so
yeah.
much cooler than me. God, like, what did I even
Eh.
do in my life? That is so cool. I love it. Hunter, it is so cool and just so amazing to see you chase your dreams and do these wonderful things. I mean, your life is just, it's like a storybook. I'm going to need you to write a book at some point so your kids can keep up with it and everybody else. Like, you got to have a picture book at least. Like,
Yeah,
what
I
is
do.
your life?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. You need
yeah.
to
So
publish it.
It's funny because for when I was really first starting out in the industry, it was like, me as like an assistant camera and like in a camera PA and everything. And I worked my way up through it. And all these people who had like these amazing stories. And I was just like, oh, I can't wait to have stories one day. I can't
Yeah.
wait to have stories one day. Not understanding that I was already living those
Already in.
stories.
That's right.
And then, as time went on, I realized that, I'm sure we could sit here and talk for hours and
Oh, yeah,
hours.
absolutely.
As time went on, I started compiling more and more stories, and then I became that person that was telling stories with my other friends who were also
So
telling
cool.
stories. And but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you never really know you're in it until you're surrounded by it, and it's been a treat the whole entire way. And it's like it takes a lot, but it also gives a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for joining my listeners. And I think you know what's coming next. I have
Yes.
to have you say with your radio voice, I want you to say something like, thanks for listening to You're Not Alone with Townsend. All right. All right. This is Hunter in his radio voice.
Thank you for listening. You're not alone with Townsend.
Yes. I love it. I won't be paying you for that copyright, but I'll probably be
That's all
using it
good.
because I'm poor. That's how
That's
that
on the
works.
house.
So.
You got it.
Oh, man. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to keep going, Hunter and I are going to do a few more questions for my patrons. Of course, we do extra questions every episode just for them. Hop on to patreon.com/TownsendTmusic. If not, we will catch you next time.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this interview, visit patreon.com/TownsendTmusic. And don't forget, you can also watch the interviews on our YouTube channel at Townsendtmusic YouTube. If you're looking to buy or sell, I have the perfect realty company for you. Clark & Co. Realty is located in the Benton, Bryant, Arkansas area, and they understand that buying or selling a home is more than just a transaction. It's a life-changing experience. That's why their team of highly seasoned real estate professionals is dedicated to providing exceptional, personalized services for all their clients. They truly take great pride in the relationships they build, and they always work relentlessly on the client's behalf to help them achieve their perfect real estate goals. They always have the client in mind, and I can speak firsthand when I say how reliable, trustworthy, and quick they were. When I was looking to buy my first home, they were there with me every step of the way, answering every question I could think of. They showed me a great amount of knowledge and patience through the process. It's no wonder they've won so many awards for their outstanding services and their excellent relationships with clients. So if you're looking to buy or sell, there is no better option than Clark & Co. Realty.